Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Rapid TV's continuously evolving social, political, and general interest show we call Korero. Of course, I'm your regular host, and Kanyang John, the beloved, also known as the controversial. And as always, just to remind you, just in case you're joining us for the first time, the show is live and interactive on all our social media platforms, and you can be part of the conversation simply by following and liking Rapid TV on all our social media platforms, on Facebook, on X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and even on TikTok. We are at Official Rapid TV. And just to also let you know that we are streaming live on our website, www.rbnradiotv.com, on YouTube, and of course on Facebook as well. And to make the show more engaging, at some point during the course of the show, the studio lines will be live and active, so you get the opportunity to be part of the conversation right here in the studio. As you can see, my guest is already seated, and it promises to be a very interesting conversation. Today on the show, we will be looking at the subject of electricity subsidy and the pricing as far as our great country, Nigeria, is concerned. I don't know about you, but right now, what band are you operating? For some of us, we thought we were either on band B or band C. But by the way we are being currently billed, it looks as if we're on band A. And so we are beginning to wonder what is happening in the power sector. On one hand, we're told, oh, subsidy is going to be removed. There's been a whole back and forth in terms of the tariff. But at the end of the day, we, the end users, are the ones taking the brunt. Yes, they'll tell you for band A, you're supposed to get 20 hours of uninterrupted power. And before coming into the studio, my guest told me that she had the privilege of going to Ghana, in Accra to be precise, and the light didn't blink. She didn't see power generators. She didn't see solar panels or inverters. And I'm wondering, just Ghana here, just here, all right? Well, in the month of April this year, Nigeria's electricity regulator approved an increase in tariff for better off consumers who use the most power as the government tries to weigh the economy off subsidies to ease pressure on public finances. Now, according to presidential spokesperson Bayo Nanuga, the government planned to ask an electricity subsidy for 15% of consumers to reduce its $2.6 billion cost. Yes. By the time we're done, you're going to be hearing some staggering figures as far as monies that naturally or supposedly have been invested in the power sector, and yet we still don't have consistent power, and we're playing to our noses and our ears. Okay? Now, adding that, Nigeria last reviewed electricity tariffs in 2020, and that the proposed increase would help businesses recover costs and boost investment. Now, if you have been following developments on this show, you will remember that my guest had been on the show twice. Yes. And she, at that time, was an advocate for services to be paid for. And she did highlight at the time the fact that government in itself was probably the highest debtor as far as the power sector is concerned. So, the vice chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NEC, Musiliu Oseni, said the increase would take effect immediately before the tariff change. Now, the federal government subsidized 67% of Nigeria's total cost of generating, transmitting, and distributing electricity. The most important background to all of this is that only Band A customers who are affected by the threefold tariff increase rolled out. There are 5 tariff bands in all. You have A to E based on supply threshold. Band A are the ones who are guaranteed a minimum of 20 hours supply per day. So please, if you are on Band A, feel free to join us in this conversation to confirm that truly you are enjoying 20 hours of supply, because some of us seem to be on band A. We are playing through our nose, but we can't guarantee that we are enjoying 20 hours of power supply. So just to give a little background too, before we get into the conversation proper, let's get to hear from the Honorable Minister of Power, Bayo Adelabu, as he tries to make some sense of what is going on in our power sector. Remember, Kumasi, Ghana here, light doesn't blink. They don't have generator. They don't have solar inverters or any inverter of any kind. And yet, in Nigeria, you know the story. Let's hear from the minister.
I would like to go straight to the point on our achievements at the Ministry of Power. I just don't know, on a lighter note, if the decision to fix power at this time close to Jumat service is another sabotage on the part of these organizers. But we'll try as much as possible to make use of the little available time. We'll need to start from the mandate of our ministry, which I believe everybody needs to understand for us to be able to do a fair and comprehensive assessment of the Ministry of Power. Our mandate at the Ministry of Power is to engender national development by developing and implementing policies to achieve and sustain adequate and reliable power supply for the nation, and to generally coordinate the activities of the private and public sector operators of the electricity industry. So beyond policy formulation and implementation, we provide general oversight to ensure that industry is able to deliver on its mandate. So we have the ministry as the policy formulator, we have the regulator, which is NAC, and then we have the industry operators, which include the gas companies, generating companies, the transmission company, and the distribution companies that are responsible for day-to-day running and fixing the sector under the oversight of the federal ministry. We all know the state of the sector that we inherited on resumption of this administration. I will not bore you with the details of that, but we know that the sector was in highly degenerated condition before this administration came in. And the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, provided the impetus for a complete change in the power sector landscape in Nigeria. Of importance to this agenda is the ability of Nigeria to leverage and harness the power sector to achieve economic growth and industrialization, to power industries, to facilitate manufacturing processes, and drive general economic development. Its impact on rural development can also not be underestimated. Extending electricity access to rural areas to stimulate economic growth, to improve living conditions of our people, and reduce poverty. It has a lot to do with improvement in our health institutions, as without energy, effective operation of the health institutions is not possible, as well as our educational institutions. Generally, national economic growth depends on stability of electricity. We can only be scratching the surface if we don't achieve this in our power sector. And the only way that we can realize the potential of human resources and natural resources that we have in abundance in this country is through stability in our electricity, and also to improve the quality of lives of our people. There are 8 priorities of Mr. President, of which power plays major roles, and a number of targets have been set for the Ministry of Power to support Mr. President in achieving these 8 priorities. I will not bore you with the details because of time, but they are all things that we are conversant with in terms of developing the policy, in terms of enabling legislation, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of investment, in terms of liquidity control, in terms of improving our generation, stabilizing our transmission, and making our distribution to be more efficient and effective. All those are listed in those targets set for the Power Ministry. To put these presentation perspectives and to go straight to the points, I have basically 9 areas under which we're going to measure and assess the performance of the Ministry of Power and our agencies. They are basically the enabling legislation. What have we achieved in this area, which is the legal platform upon which we can build any reform or transformation. Then policy and regulatory reform. What have we achieved? Liquidity squeeze and the debt overhang that we have in the sector. What steps have we taken to resolve this? Infrastructure, state of our infrastructure. How have we been able to revamp this, upgrade or enhance for a more stable power supply? What's our efforts in generation? What have we achieved to date? In transmission, how far have we stabilized the transmission grid? How far have we expanded the transmission network? Then distribution, how have we turned it around from the docile sub-segment that it was to a more active, a more responsive, and a more reliable segment of the power sector value chain. Then in energy transition, this is not transmission, what is our effort in ensuring that we achieve a smooth and seamless energy transition to low carbon environment? Then lastly, the investments. On the legislation and policy, I think Mr. President deserves a round of applause in this area. Because unlike the past administration that have shied away from giving this sector the enabling legislation that is conducive for reform and transformation. Within 1 month of Mr. President's resumption, he signed into law what we called Electricity Act of 2023. Why is this special? Why is it a milestone achievement? In the past, we all knew one ECN, Electricity Company of Nigeria, we knew one NEPA, we knew one PHCN, and then we started the unbundling. But now, this act has allowed a decentralization and liberalization of the sector, whereby not only federal government alone to play in the sector, the subnational governments of states and local governments can also play in all the segments of the power sector value chain, in generation, in transmission, and in distribution. This is taking power to the grassroots. Please, let's clap for Mr. President. So in June 2023, his administration signed the 2023 Electricity Act into law to reform the electricity sector and promote competition in NESI, and marking a significant milestone in Nigeria's electricity sector by providing the new law which focuses on enhancing the regulation and management of the electricity value chain with the active involvement of the subnational government. Today, it is not just paying lip service to this. It is not just signing paper alone. We have actioned it. It shows the sincerity and determination and commitment of this administration to transform the power sector. 3 states already have their regulatory autonomy: Enugu, Ekiti, and Ondo State. So we mean business. Thank you very much. And this regulatory reform, in November 2023, I was there personally, together with Mr. President and the Chancellor of Republic of Germany, Mr. Olaf Scholz, where we signed an acceleration agreement to continue on the Presidential Power Initiative, which we all know as the Siemens contract that was started in 2019. And we have almost completed the pilot stage of this. What has this done to us? The pilot stage has added additional evacuation capacity of 280 megawatts.
All right, the Honorable Minister of Power, Bayo Adelabu, at the ministerial briefing held in the month of April, if I remember correctly, earlier this year on electricity subsidy and pricing in Nigeria. Meanwhile, just to let you know that the Nigerian government has approved a 50% electricity subsidy for all public hospitals and public tertiary institutions, including universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education across the country. The Minister of State for Health and Social Welfare, Tunji Alausa, announced this last Thursday at the National Neo Psychiatric Hospital in Banawa, Kaduna State. According to the minister, Alausa said this gesture aims to reduce the running costs for public hospitals and alleviate the impact on patients. He also announced plans to rename the hospital as Specialist Hospital to broaden healthcare services delivery. It's still Rapid TV's continuously evolving socio-political and general interest show, Korero. And just to let you know, the show is live. We are discussing power, electricity, up NEPA. For those of us who grew up in that generation. So that's our focus on the show. And at some point, of course, we will open the phone lines to get your reaction. Tell us what's happening in are you on band C or band Z? Which band are you? How are you coping with the tariff? I mean, we had the Honorable Minister, giving us all kinds of statistics, telling them what they've done, what they haven't done. Omono, that was in April. We are in the month of September. Between April and now, what has changed? Has there been any improvement? Some will say yes, because like you and I were conversing while the Honorable, we were playing that clip of the Honorable Minister. You yourself confess to the fact that in your vicinity, power has improved to a considerable level. And we hope that is the case across board. It may not necessarily be the case. But the question is, between April and now, what has happened in the power sector? Has there been improvement? Has the narrative changed? Because it looks as if the narrative has changed. We're paying more now for and all of that. But really, what has happened?
Okay, so in Nigeria's power sector, between April and now, today is September 2nd, 2024. I would say from my own view, yes, a lot is happening. For instance, FGN Power Company and the Ministry of Power, they are collaborating to move the needle on the Presidential Power Initiative, the one that was signed by Buhari many years ago, right? That literally failed at some point, but then they're trying to move things along by making sure that we have more infrastructure across the country. They've been able to commission some states transformers and state power transformers in some states, right? And that is progress on one side, right? And then on another side, we've had vandalism acts. Since the beginning of this year, we've recorded a lot of vandalism acts.
When you talk of vandalism, I wonder, because these facilities are supposed to be high voltage facilities that naturally should scare anybody going close to them.
Yeah,
so how do these vandals have access?
It will scare anybody, just like you and me, but it will not scare people that have experience working in that sector.
Oh, so we have the saboteurs are actually in the system.
That is what we believe to be true. It may not be true, but if you are going to vandalize a high voltage system like that, you would probably have some experience working in that space, right? Because someone like me that has no experience in the field, working with voltage, high voltage systems or transformers, I would not be able to carry out vandalism acts. But someone that has some experience, maybe an electrician or engineer with that kind of experience, they would be able to do whatever they want to do. Now, the TCN is trying to fix, or rather, they've actually fixed and restored power to some communities that were affected by vandals, right? So that's progress on the other hand. Generation, yes, we've increased our generation capacity in the last couple of months. That's also progress, but that's not what we should be celebrating.
So
These
what
are
should
these are
we
things.
what should
These are
we be
things that,
celebrating?
yeah, we should be celebrating more supply. But the truth is, for some people, for some clusters in the country, I would use Abuja as an example. Some people are recording higher hours of supply on band A or band B. But a lot of Nigerians will still tell you, oh, I don't have access to power, or I see only maybe 8 hours or 5 hours of power, and maybe that's even at night when I'm trying to sleep, right? But what I think we should focus on is providing power supply to industrial clusters, as opposed to residential areas. Right? Because at the end of the day, stakeholders will tell you power needs to be paid for. So why don't you provide more power to industrial clusters, to small business owners, to commercial areas, to industries, where you know that when you provide this power to them and they're able to work with this power during the day, they will be able to pay off whatever they have taken from the discos. And then the discos can recover that money and invest it back into the system. Because at the end of the day, stakeholders will tell you, it is true that we need money in the sector. The discos are not receiving enough revenue. Their revenue base is basically zero. We've not gotten to the 100% yet. We're barely at 40%. So we need power to be supplied on a regular basis during the day when industries, when people, businesses are working. They need this power. Instead of spending all that money on petrol generators and diesel generators, they're able to put the money back into the discos.
Now, some will argue that as much as they may agree with you that there is need for small businesses, medium-scale businesses, industrial clusters across Abuja and other parts of the country should enjoy adequate or more or less, good supply of power during the productive hours of the day, but that there is a lifestyle change that has suggested that now you have more people, especially young people, who are working from home. So residential is not just residential. For a lot of people, their homes has also become their offices. You have small businesses who operate from their homes, who do food supplies. They cook at home. They have bikes who go to do the rounds and all of that. So they also need power, and they also pay for this power. Now, let me give you an example. This is some of the conversations generated actually via my wife's Facebook handle, where she actually put out this comment: Band A people, please, how are you guys coping with the bill? They don't cheat me, 15K for 4 days light. I beg, how do I port to Band Z? Now, this is a comment that resonates with a lot of Nigerians because, as I said, there seems to be a lifestyle change that government may not be taking into cognizance, that the world is shifting because of digital and online technology. A lot of people are preferring to work from home, earn more money, and use that money to pay for power, pay for services consumed. Now, let's look at this comment. Your daily energy consumption might be high. 10,500 worth of energy used to take me 4 days. So I started by turning off electrical appliances that consume so much energy. Since power is steady with those of us on band A, you can turn off the fridge in the morning until you return from work. If I turn mine off in the morning while going to work, by the time I return, it's still very cool because, then you have this one. Now, your home appliances aren't the same as mine. 30K can take me almost a month. I am band A. Now, AC, I dey use. Okay? Here, 330,000 for 3 weeks. Now, that is somebody say, I mean, that's massive. 30,000, and then you have people. You people will not understand what God have done for me. To whom much is given, much is expected. You understand? So
Yeah.
these are the kind
Yeah.
of reactions that you are getting from the residential areas, because most of these people are also small business owners, apart from those who have jobs outside their homes.
Okay, great. So I want to address two things.
Okay.
So the first thing you raised about lifestyle changes, I agree with that. I used to work remotely, so I understand that. Now, what I would say to that is the discos need to have a fantastic and comprehensive monitoring system. There is something called SCADA, right? And we don't have upgraded SCADA systems in the country.
Why?
That's one. Well,
Is it
you know
that
the country.
expensive to acquire?
Well, it's expensive to acquire, but I just think it's mostly about political will, because there have been plans all these years to get upgraded SCADA systems, but for some reason we're not getting it, right? It still boils down to revenue, it still boils down to money, financing. Now, aside from what I just said, I would also want to point out that when we are able to get or acquire a comprehensive net metering in the system, where every household is
properly
metered,
metered.
and the discos and TCN can monitor what is being used per residential area or commercial cluster, then they will be able to say, okay, this is where power is consumed the most, and this is where we need to supply the most. These are the kind of customers we have. This is what they will be able to monitor the entire system. So then you'll be able to say, okay, these people or this area is filled with remote workers or people who are running businesses from home, and then you can provide them that kind of power that they need, as well as the industrial clusters.
Let me ask you.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Okay.
What we need is, on one hand, a comprehensive net metering system.
Okay.
And for you to have a comprehensive net metering system, you need to be able to monitor. So it's not the technology needs to be acquired. So it's not just by putting meters in all the houses. The discos need to be able to monitor what is happening per usage of the power distributed to those meters. Now, then for your wife's post, yes, I would also want to say that energy management is very important. Now, the Ministry of Power just inaugurated a communications team, right? They're going to be interfacing with the public, letting them know how they should make use of their power. A lot of us in our homes, we waste power a lot. We're not making use of this thing. Okay, you go to a hotel, you book into a hotel, and you turn on the water heater. The heater is on for 5 hours straight. Do you really need that? As soon as the water becomes hot, you turn it off. That's energy management. You're managing that, the power that you're distributing. I mean, the power that you're making use of, right? As opposed to wasting it. Your ACs, when the place is chilled.
Shouldn't this have come prior to before even the talk of removal of subsidy, increase of tariff, the need to help people understand power management, power usage?
Better late than never. Better late than never. We already have a national orientation agency, but they've not been.
Some will argue that they are comatose.
Exactly. So that was their job, to educate people, to make people understand. I don't know, as far as I know, I don't know. I didn't receive any message from the NOA on that. I don't know if other people did, but I didn't. So that was their job. But now the ministry has inaugurated a communications team. And we're going to hold them accountable, make sure that they are communicating with Nigerians, because a lot of Nigerians don't even care. They don't even know that, oh, when you're leaving your house, you turn off all the lights. Some people leave their lights on. You're wasting power, right? You're not managing your power. So at the end of the day, all that, you're burning your bill. At the end of the day, you pay a lot of money for what you're consuming. You're consuming it, you're not even at home. You're consuming all these things. A lot of us have a lot of kitchen appliances.
Yes.
We plug them in. They're not in use, but they're plugged in. Those are vampire appliances. They will keep sucking out your power. At the end of the month, you pay through your noses. Either you're metered or you're not metered. So energy management is another thing that the sector should focus on.
I think we're going to have another conversation focusing on energy management, because I can imagine some Nigerians like, what's she talking about? I'm paying for it. I mean, are you saying I shouldn't have microwave? Are you saying I shouldn't have blender?
Just don't plug them in when not in use.
Are you saying I shouldn't have a toaster? You know, what's this auntie talking about? You know, you need to understand the psyche of the average Nigerian.
Yes.
And because the mindset of the average Nigerian is that, look, if you provide it, I can afford it. It shouldn't be a problem. It is only when the service is not provided and yet I'm still being billed, then there is a problem. Now, but between April and now, what has happened to the tariff? Because, like you could see with those comments, at a point in time, we remember there was a protest, and part of the demand for that protest was for electricity tariff to be reversed. So what has happened?
Well, I understand the need to call for a reversal on the tariff. But the truth is, the tariff cannot be reversed. Power is expensive. And in a country like Nigeria, where you don't even have the necessary infrastructure, when I say necessary infrastructure, I'm talking about upgraded transformers, I'm talking about cables, I'm talking about transmission systems. Most of them are dilapidated. A lot of them are old, and that's why Buhari signed the PPI, which I mentioned earlier. That's, you know, after all these years, we're still trying to. Now, the FGN Power Company, as well as other partners, they're trying to move that initiative forward. Yeah, by bringing in new transformers, installing them, you know, just ensuring that the transmission part of the sector is taken care of.
Yes.
You can take power from here to here because you have the necessary infrastructure. Now, to get all those things done, you need money. And at the end of the day, like it or not, like you said earlier that I was advocating for the tariffs to stay. Of course, power is expensive. And Nigeria is a country where our population keeps growing. And as the population grows, you need to keep upgrading your power infrastructure. The power doesn't just come by magic. It has to move through distribution lines. It has to move through transmission lines. And to get those lines going, you need to keep upgrading them. You need to make sure that every infrastructure is in place. Now, if the infrastructure is old, it needs replacement. And as the people in the sector are working, they are studying, understanding what modern day infrastructure looks like, right? And they need to invest in that. But now, you mentioned subsidies in the beginning.
Yes.
The federal government is still trying to subsidize power. Now, a notable stakeholder in this sector, his name is Edu Okeke. He's the managing director, Azura Power. You've heard of Azura Power, right? He was at the Electricity Hubs Power Dialogue in July, I think. And he mentioned, he said, as long as you have electricity subsidies, it is very difficult to attract the right kind of investors. Because investors are not Father Christmases, right? They want to make sure that if they're putting billions of naira into this sector, the money is coming back to them, either higher or even higher than that, right? So it's not about electricity subsidies. You need to take out all those subsidies, and you need to make sure that all the money going into the sector is from investors, and they need to be sure that their money is coming back to them. If you're subsidizing, you're not allowing the market to adjust to what it should be.
Now, there are two or three things here. Naturally, one would expect that in a developing country like Nigeria, government at the initial stage will subsidize certain things to create what is seen to be an enabling environment. And then when investors do show interest and begin to invest, government gradually pulls subsidy out of that sector, and it becomes private sector driven. That is supposedly the plan. So why is it different with the case of Nigeria? Must government completely remove subsidy before investors? Because whether you like it or not, Nigeria is a viable market. We're talking about a population of well over 250 million. And of that 250 million, over 65 is the productive part of the of that population. You talked about small businesses, medium businesses, business clusters. This makes up more than, if my stats is correct, more than 55 point something percent of the both the formal and informal, particularly the informal sector of the economy. And I mean, yes, we just like you talked about metering and monitoring. That is a part of the economy that is still yet to be fully documented. So, why would any investor not see viability in that?
They just do it. Now,
Is it because of government policy, or is it because they are not willing? Because I'm beginning to wonder, what exactly are the requirements for me to invest in the power sector if I am not going to? Because we were all here when the telecommunications sector was liberalized and brought and opened, and the market opened up under then President Segun Obasanjo, and then we saw the MTN, and the criteria were stringent. We at a point, Nigerians were worried that some of these telecommunications companies that we have today may not even be interested. And we've seen big telecommunications, Vodacom, they've come, they've gone, they've even rebranded, sold out their assets, others bought it back, and we have, and today, telecommunications is new oil in Nigeria as we speak. So why is power different?
Why is power different? If you think back to when Nigeria used to rely solely on Nitel, before the advancements, everything we've seen now with the telecom sector.
But we've unbundled NEPA.
Exactly.
We've unbundled Power Holding.
Thank you. But the government is still in charge of some parts of the power sector, right? The government is still in charge of transmission. Now, another notable stakeholder in the power sector, Dan Kunle, I listened to him and I've had the opportunity to interface with him. He's an energy economist. He says the best thing to do is for the government to leave every part of the power sector, leave it in the hands of the private sector and watch it grow.
But has the private sector proven to be credible? What the discos are doing, for instance. We don't have a price control measure in terms of tariff. We don't, I mean, as a consumer, there is nothing that says that if I walk into AEDC, for instance, and I make a complaint, that my complaint will be seen to be viable. Because as far as they are concerned, it's more about profit. As long as I'm paying and they provide whatever they can provide, it should be good enough for me. But for the average paying customer, is that good enough?
Well,
who is holding them accountable?
Exactly. Like I told you the other time, right? I will give practical examples. The regulator, for instance, NERC, right? You go to their Twitter and they are posting a video saying, oh, well, as a consumer, you're not required to replace when they go faulty. That's the responsibility of your assigned disco, right? And you go to the comment section and people are going haywire in the comment section and they're like, you're posting this video, but the reality for us is different. If our transformer goes faulty, we are required to, donate money and buy a transformer. So who is putting the specific disco in check? Who is making sure that heads are rolling for that mistake? Because of course it's a mistake. It's not supposed to be the responsibility of the consumer. It is for the disco to figure out, right? So at the end of the day, we need more regulation. We need to be able to say, okay, if this is what it requires, then we are sticking by it. If this is a policy already doled out by the government, then we are implementing it exactly the way it should be. That's another thing that drives investors. Sanctity of contract, sanctity of the market. They're saying, oh, the government has said this in this policy, right? And we're seeing it play out in the discos. We're seeing it play out in transmission system. So we want to put our money there because we know that our money is safe, right? So at the end of the day, we need to walk the talk. We're saying, yes, we want to clean up the power sector, but are we really cleaning up the power sector? At the end of the day, we get all these power sector interventions.
I was coming to that. I mean, when the minister started, he talked about the state of the sector and, of course, the need for more money to be injected into the power sector. But if we check the records, in the last 2 decades, there have been all kinds of interventions in the power sector, from the World Bank, from the IMF. I mean, where the question, and we're talking millions, if not billions of US dollars.
The ones you know.
So, where are those monies going?
That's that thing we need to tackle, corruption. Because at the end of the day, foreign investors are watching, and they're seeing reports where, oh, maybe $200 million was secured by the federal government to fix the power sector, or $500 million, or pounds, or euro, and then they're wondering, where is this money going to? What happened to all those sums of money, right? And if we're not able to justify the use of that money, or those monies, then investors are just going to laugh and say, oh, well, let's meet them. And they'll meet with representatives from the government, or they'll meet with representatives from other private sector firms. And they're like, oh, yeah, let's collaborate and fix this. And they'll have a handshake and they'll smile. But at the end of the day, you won't get anything from them. Why? Because they're not seeing judicial use of what has already put into the sector. So corruption is another thing that we need to tackle in the sector.
So in all of this, where does the average consumer stand in all of this? Whether you're in band A or band Z, how does the average customer, as I said when we started the show, you shared your experience in Accra, Ghana, where you stayed at a hotel, you didn't see any generators, you didn't see any form of inverters, and you were like, where's your generator? Won't power go off? And they say, no, as long as you're in Accra, power doesn't go off. So when will the average power consumer, whether residential or business owner, be able to say, power doesn't go off? I can conveniently run a 24-hour business and be sure that I am not paying through my teeth and my and my nose.
Well, they can actually get that. They can actually say that now if they invest in the off-grid sector. But as long as we're talking about the on-grid sector, where you are dependent on hydropower and thermal, that's gas to power, then I would say they need to make sure that they are aware, right? Because for me, it starts with awareness. If you're not aware of what the Ministry of Power is trying to do, of what FGN Power Company is trying to do, or what your state government, as far as the new Electricity Act of 2023 is trying to do, then you are all you need to do is just shut your mouth, wait for them to lead you to wherever they want to lead you. But if you are aware of what is happening, if you are aware of what the Electricity Act says, then you start holding whoever you can accountable. You can hold your state governor accountable. Right now, there are some states, Ekiti, Lagos, Enugu, that have gotten the approval from NERC to regulate their
power
in their states,
regions,
right? So you can start holding your state governor accountable and say, oh yes, so when are we going to get this going in these states? For those states that are yet to, you can say, oh yeah, other states NERC has actually given them the power to regulate the power sector in their states. So when are we getting to that point? So it's all about accountability. You hold your governor, you hold your government, you hold the Ministry of Power accountable. And at the same time, you manage your energy so you don't have to pay your noses. Whether you're an unmetered customer or you're a metered customer, it starts from what you can do as a person. You can reduce your bills by ensuring that you're managing your energy the way you should. If you're not using a particular appliance, why do you need to plug it in? Why do you need to put it on? You put it off. So your bills are reduced at the end of the day. And if you're a metered customer and you're paying more, just know that yes, the tariff has not been reversed. still paying 206, right, per kilowatt hour. Now, at the end of the, that's for band A. Now, at the end of the day,
you that band A 206 per
kilowatt
per hour.
Yes. So you should know, if you have the time, many people don't have the time, that's the truth. If you have the time, you can calculate if you're actually getting the number of hours that you should as a band A customer or as a band B customer. I think the moment we can, if we're not seeing the kind of regulation we need, the people that are regulating the sector, the moment
we can self-regulate.
Aside from that, we can demand, can make that demand on them because that's their job, right? It's just like you have a governor and the governor is just there sitting down and he's not looking for investors, he's not doing anything in your state. You hold him accountable. You drive people to action. If all Nigerians decide to stay quiet and say, well, anything they bring for me, I'll just pay. Now, what's my own?
What if I decide? I remember as we were walking into the studio and I said, I made that statement that I don't want to have any AEDC. I want to be able to generate my power, consume what I generate. Maybe even if I choose and if legislation allows, like in Germany, sell off excess power where necessary. Is that possible?
Yeah, that's possible in the off-grid sector. You can decide to buy into the whole solar thing and get your own solar and generate your power and make use of whatever you want to make use of and stop relying on. We have people that have done that. They rely solely on off-grid power, right? But at the end of the day, some people will tell you, I don't want to invest in solar. I still want the national grid. I want to just be able to be comfortable with that. Whatever they bill me, I pay for it as long as I get it. But others have said, well, I don't want to do the whole business with disco anymore. I'd rather just invest in off-grid. And some banks have actually started to give payment by installment. Yeah. When you get your solar, you're able to pay maybe month by month. And the other time, the Electricity Hub had followed the Access Energy Institute to Wuse Market. And then we had traders inside the market that had bought into the whole solar generator thing. So whenever the on-grid light goes off, their solar just kicks in. And they tell you, well, I've been able to pay off my debts via Volt Tech and Creed's Energy. So they were able to pay off their debts in maybe 2 years, 3 years. So people are doing that. And there's some really there's some really smart people in Lagos State that have been able to take themselves totally off the grid. They rely basically on solar. So everything that they do, most of these people work remotely, like you said, lifestyle change.
Yeah.
So they've taken themselves off. They say, oh, I don't want anything to do with discos anymore. They don't pay anything. They just pay only to their solar developers, right? So that's a lot of people around the country are getting into because, I mean, you run a business, you calculate the amount of money you spend on petrol, diesel to run your generators, to do your business. And then you look at your manpower, you're not even able to hire more people to work with you. You're overstressed, you're killing yourself at work. At the end of the day, you're like, what's the use? Why should I continue? Let me just put diesel into solar and get a panel system, right? So at the end of the day, up to the person. If you're running a small business, you can buy into the off-grid sector, or you can decide to manage your energy and hold the people you should hold accountable. Yeah.
Well, Omono, it's been nice talking to you. It's always educative, but I will have you back because, as I said, we need to discuss this power management thing. You know, you will be shocked that a whole lot of Nigerians don't. It's new to them because we're used to having power, using the appliances we want to use, you know, and not necessarily understanding that we should be able to manage the power that we consume. Once again, thank you so much for making our time to be on the show.
Thank you.
Well, folks, that's the conversation this morning. Tomorrow promises to be as incisive as always. Remember, we have our ears to the ground and our search being on development. We apologize we couldn't open the phone lines. Omona and I got into, you know, the conversation. So tomorrow we'll open the phone lines, get your reactions. But if you want to contribute to today's conversation, it's very simple. Just send your views and comments. There are Facebook, Twitter, and of course, Instagram handles. And you get don't worry. We'll take your conversations right here on the show. I know power is something that concerns everybody, and especially where you have to burn holes in your pocket to be able to ensure that your business runs, and you have power at home to ensure that everybody is smiling and happy. We will do our bit to keep our ears to the ground and our searchlight beamed on developments as far as the power sector is concerned. But till tomorrow, when we come your way, another incisive edition of Rapid TV's continuously evolving social, political, and general interest show, Korero, is bye for now.